Human Nature, a journey in search of a peaceful and prosperous society with human nature as a guide. Led by your host, Adam Heyman.
Hello and welcome to Human Nature. I am Adam Heyman. That right there is my buddy Tyrone, the porcupine hobo. How you doing?
I am spikeless today. All my spikes flew off after the election.
In what emotional state did they fly, my friend?
It was just, this is amazing. This is like one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I don't know. It's just, it's so much to talk about. It's so weird. But
I agree. I had first of all, excuse me, let me say that I was pleasantly surprised that it was called basically that evening.
yeah, that's what was really surprising.
I did not think that would happen. I would have bet against it. And in some of the key states, I mean, I'm sure there was some chicanery going on, but the widespread cheating that I expected, because if you're a deep state operative, there's trillions at stake, and hey, you might get thrown in jail, and this guy's Hitler, blah blah blah. I just thought there was going to be a whole bunch of shenanigans, and you just didn't see anybody. It just, or like maybe there was some in Arizona or Nevada or something, but like Pennsylvania just looked like it was like an like an honest system. So they either managed to fool me or they just didn't have any corruption. I was shocked.
Well, the fact that he won the popular vote, I mean, there's no way they're gonna hide this. I mean, it's one thing to maybe shift the electoral college around a little bit, but you know, come on, man, that was crazy.
Well, I don't know. I think they probably could have. I mean, my explanation for why Trump won the popular vote was just that this time around, Republicans in deep blue states realize that there's a point to voting. Even though you're not going to change the electoral results, if the Democrats are constantly winning the popular vote and losing the electoral, such that they're screaming that we need to eliminate the electoral college, look how stupid it is. So it's the Republicans were motivated to show up, even though their vote, quote unquote, doesn't count, and pump up Trump's numbers. And I think that explains that. So, which means that you could still do shenanigans in the 7 swing states, and it would be meaningful, you know?
Yeah. That's true. I got to ask you a question though. What is wrong with Nevada? What? Good grief, man. Could you guys count your votes?
Well, the problem
later, Nevada's still hanging. Like,
well, it's not like Tyrone, we know our numbers. The problem is the Democrats control the state legislature, and they do awful things, such that, I mean, for example, in this case, they were still accepting by law mail-in ballots until Saturday. I don't even think they cared if they were postmarked. Don't quote me, but I think that's the case. So it's not like we couldn't count them. It's just like, well, who knows? Who knows how many votes are going to show up? You know, we mailed out X number, and we don't have them all. So that was basically the problem. And there's other states, like I think California, that was one of their big reasons too. So there's in all 50 states, these elections still need to be tightened up quite a bit. In Nevada, for example, we passed a seemingly sensible law that you actually do have to show an ID to vote. That seems reasonable. Why in the world wouldn't you have that? So we passed that, and a couple.
How do you do mail-ins with that?
It's only signature verification, which is nonsense.
Oh.
There's no way to set the dial on that such that you're going to be happy. You know, you're either going to be allowing a whole bunch of goofy fraud, because people can, see other people's signatures. Maybe not, the whole country, but it's not that hard. If you know somebody, you've probably seen their signature. And then on the other side of the dial is people screw up their signature all the time. So how do you set that dial? That's why there is a massive curing problem in so many of these states. That's what the curing is. Fixing a ballot if you've rejected it on a signature verification basis, trying to track down that actual person and get them to re-sign or show the ID or something.
I hadn't heard of that. Okay.
So the election process went way smoother than I thought. That was one of the huge, and then obviously check out the sign I got right here. Who I was rooting for.
We'll see.
As I mentioned on another podcast, I voted a strict Nunya ticket this time around. Nunya business. But yeah, I was rooting for Free Ross big time.
It's remarkable. I mean, before we go into some charts and stuff, the number one thing, as I already mentioned, that surprised me or that took me aback by this was just they called it the same night. I mean, it was
Yeah.
a little after 1 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
And it was done. I was like, what? It's crazy. Like,
Well,
what was your number one surprise thing just of the night?
Just of the night, my number one surprise was the speed.
Yeah.
I guess my number two is that they allowed him to win. Of course, rifles and bullets are still a thing.
Yeah.
And I'm a little the deep state just seems quiet, like too quiet, like they're not worried. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Well, he has not been inaugurated yet.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I still have a prediction out there. He will not be installed as president.
Yeah, you're still alive, buddy.
I'm still alive with that bet. So we'll see.
The other thing, I mean, we didn't know it that night because, again, Nevada took forever and Arizona did too. But the fact that he won all 7 swing states was shocking. This was a red tsunami. They were predicting a red wave. I guess it was 2 years ago. It didn't happen for all manner of reasons. But this was a tsunami. So I guess if they were rigging, we found out what too big to rig really looks like. And yeah, what were you thinking that night other than the quick results? Is there anything? Well, first of all, who were you rooting for, my friend? And
I mean, that's a tough one. I think, like Scott Horton mentioned on some show, not the episode he did with us, I don't think, but I know, I think he did mention it on our show. He's just like, he hates the left so much, but he can't vote for Trump, right? So he's rooting for Trump to win, just more as a FU finger to the left. And I guess that's sort of me too, because the only libertarian influence of ideology or thought appears to me is on the right. There's at least some connection there. We might as well just get into this real quick though. Dave Smith had a show of his lately where sometimes it's better to lose, right?
Yeah.
And I am a little torn about that because this economy is just on the brink of absolute collapse. And if there's some sort of huge economic depression during his term, I mean, that's gonna sort of ruin. They're going to blame it on the right. They're going to blame it on Trump. They're going to blame it on whatever, and then it's going to swing back to the left. Is my fear.
Yeah, but the thing about that claim or that worry is there's no ducking that punch. If the Democrats won the presidency and both chambers of Congress and the economy tanked, they would still at least shout the narrative that, well, yes, it's that obstructionist Republicans. They still found a way somehow, and they're so crooked. Right. So, yeah, don't worry. Just walk forward and eat that punch because it's coming no matter what. The problem is that, Trump is still sort of a doofus who doesn't know anything. I love the people he's surrounding himself now, at least during the campaign. But, Sheldon Adelson's ghost still did manage to write Trump a check for $100 million. So we're getting a bunch of, foreign policy administration leaders that don't look so good. I do hope that since it's sort of a lame duck presidency, that Trump is quick to pull the "you're fired" card, and maybe he can take Miriam Adelson's money and then find some other reason to reverse course if he is still listening to people like Ramaswamy and others.
Before we dive into some of the picks that he's made for his cabinet, at least what we know up to this point, let's take a quick look at this map. This comes from Al Jazeera, and what's interesting about this map is you can select for different years. So that's pretty interesting. So right now, this is what the electoral map looked like for this last election. But we can jump back and forth a little bit. So here's 2008. Okay, very, very interesting. That looks more like kind of what you and I remember sort of growing up. These are the liberal areas. These are the red areas. I mean, look at Florida. Florida was once a Democrat stronghold, and look at Obama, 365 um, electoral votes. I mean, it's insane. And then we go ahead 4 years to 2020. Not much has changed. Oh, so flip back to 2008, a little bit in the middle, Nebraska, Indiana, North Carolina, but not a huge change. Go from 365 to 332. Let's go into Obama's second term, 2016. Or sorry, this is for when Clinton was running in 2016. Now look at the massive change. So here we go with the narrative. America just hates women. Hillary gets into the ring, and boom, it goes super red. What do you say to that?
Well, I say, ladies, don't think that Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, quote unquote, represent women. Those two women were awful. Like, I don't think, even though I disagree with a lot of her politics, I think the country wouldn't have a problem with like a Tulsi Gabbard type female, president.
Yeah.
We're eventually going to get one, but you sent these two horrible. I mean, Kamala Harris is a drunk idiot and a puppet of Hillary Clinton. And then you sent us Hillary Clinton, who I thought in 2016, if she won, she would legit start World War III just because, we haven't had enough hope and change. Or, I mean, she talked to Barack Obama into getting Muammar Gaddafi guillotined to death in the street. She's awful.
Yeah. That's a good point. But I mean, it is kind of funny that just happened.
Did you see
to be two women?
Did you see the horrible meme, which makes me laugh, but that's because I'm a bad person?
No,
there's the standard meme, which has got a sleeping child peacefully sleeping, and then there's a kneeling soldier kneeling over the child with his arms extended, and he's taking all these arrows into the back from.
Okay.
And then you label the three icons, right? Well, this one was the sleeping child was America,
mm-hmm.
and the soldier was Donald Trump. And all the flaming arrows was the threat of a female presidency. Well, so, yeah, he's a lady killer.
Remember, he doesn't like smart women, Adam. As Mark Cuban told us.
What's with Mark Cuban? What a weirdo.
I don't know, man. He's probably on a list somewhere.
Yeah, or the video files are safely recorded.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's recap real quick. So 2008, this is sort of the last time I can kind of remember America being sort of normal-ish, right? Before, now it's after 9/11, so we're dealing with all that war against terror nonsense and the TSA at the airports, which just whatever, all the bad things that came with that. But America still felt pretty normal. It was an economic boom, and then all of a sudden, 2008 financial crisis, bust, bam. So this is kind of the last time I remember. Okay, yeah, of course, the West Coast, East Coast, sort of the middle, the Midwest, blue, South, and the Plains area, red. Yep, and Florida, blue. It's a bunch of old retirees from New York. Of course, it's blue. And Alaska and Hawaii. God bless them. You can always count on them to be red and blue through and through. But then, Obama comes along, and again, not a whole lot different. Went from 365 to 332, starts to go down a little bit, but only a couple of states really changed their colors. And then 2016 happened, and wow, those what we now call swing states. I mean, who thought that Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin are now swing states, and Florida is deeply red? I mean, back in the day, 2008, you go back to Bush v. Gore, Florida was the battleground. Whoever won Florida won the presidency. And I mean, it has completely changed. So, bam, 2016, a real shift in the demographics, and then 2020, we can who knows, but it sort of is the same but opposite. It's almost as if the red states in 2016 went blue in 2020, and now in 2024 they're back with even more. So I don't know what to make of this. Obviously, one thing is clear, that in the last decade, and even less than that, last few recent years, especially during COVID, the migration has happened. Red states are getting redder, blue states are getting bluer. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, there's going to be some of that effect from the COVID migrations. But when you were talking about Obama sweeping in, um, you mentioned all the war on terror and the TSA, but there's also a brand new evil department created, Department of Homeland Security. So I think smooth talking Obama got rushed in a blue wave because people were just sick and tired of everything that was Bush and Cheney and all these neocons. People are starting to learn that word. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say whether Trump winning was repudiation of Obama's policies, because you'd presume Hillary Clinton would just continue them, and that's true. Or was it misogyny, or was it just that the populist wave that Bernie Sanders and Ron Paul before him, were sort of making policy? Was it just populism that made the change for a populist Trump? I'm not sure. I think there's a bunch of different things. And yeah, I think we're getting a growing repudiation of what the deep state is, a recognition that there is one, that when people talk about that term or the regime or the powers that be more broadly, they're not just kooks. There is an evil group of political cronies and deep state operatives and neocons who think they're actually doing a good thing by playing Risk in real life, killing all the people across the world in an effort to have a unipolar forever moment. And I think there's a huge rejection against that, and that's kind of what we're seeing now. The election of Biden was a reflection of the tech bros, social media clamping down on things like the Hunter laptop story, manipulating Google searches, controlling the news, controlling YouTube, and I think the summer of love in 2020, and Trump's horrible missteps during COVID, sicking Anthony Fauci on us. I think that was the reason that the populist swell didn't keep going. They wanted a return to the public wanted a return to normalcy, and they thought they'd get that with good old normally corrupt doofus Joe Biden. They didn't get that.
Of course, as one election ends, we immediately start talking about the next one, right? Because
That's what we
that's the
do.
game we're in. So do we think that populism holds?
Well, my question is, the answer is yes. I think for sure. I think that dam is cracked wide open.
Okay.
But the question is, when in 4 years, when Trump is no longer eligible to be the ringleader, so to speak, where does that populist energy go to?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have an answer for that. I would hope it would be someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, if he is the person that I think he is. I would hope it would follow whoever Elon Musk decides to champion and support, because I think he's moved in very intelligent directions over the last handful of years. But I don't know. It could be another Bernie Sanders type, because the electorate, it's not like I think they totally believe in free markets. I just think they know they're being screwed. So maybe it would turn into a leftward direction, which would be bad. And there's
Right.
different, and they could get fooled. Like if it got channeled into JD Vance and he turned out to be more of a chameleon, an agent of Peter Thiel and the CIA, and just a fake. I'm really with the deep state, but I'm pretending to be one of you. The populist movement can get fooled because they don't read a lot of books. They just sort of have this feeling that they're getting screwed, and they're trying to find a way out of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, speaking of those demographic shifts you alluded to, it's pretty interesting to see just where Trump won. And in fact, I think he really only lost in a couple of demographics. I mean, overall, just take gender as a whole, Trump won it, men 55% and women 45%. So a little less than half on women as a whole. But if you break down that the genders by into different groups, so white men he won by an astounding margin. White women, so this was the one people were really talking about. Trump took the majority of white women. I mean, that's insane. I mean, and he made gains on black men. Didn't really make any gains on black women. So that was definitely something we didn't see sort of materialize. But I mean, among Latino men, he won the majority of Latino men, and almost 40% of Latino women. And I mean, and look at the age groups. Everybody says that age groups are leftist. I mean, that's almost a 50-50 split. The 30 to 40-year-olds are, so that's Gen Z, right? Or that's millennials, 30 to 44-year-olds. So they're split. Our generation, Gen X, they're leaning a little bit more right now, and the boomers are split down the middle. So I mean, it's remarkable. I just you haven't seen these numbers on the Republican side in, I don't know, since Reagan, maybe. I mean, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, there's two big factors. I was reading a Substack article shortly after the election that I'm going to forget the percentages, but it was something like 2/3 of Native Americans voted for Trump.
Yeah, no,
which is weird, right? You would think, but anyway, I thought that's emblematic of one of the things you were talking about, which is that one of the big divisions was poverty, class. I think poor people are the most receptive to feeling like they're getting screwed, and they don't think that the left is there to help them. They think they're part of the reason that they're just trapped in poverty. I think that's what that represents. And then a couple of other things. The more educated you are these days, mostly just means the more propagandized you are. I mean, if you're not just learning a trade, what you're absorbing is the religion of the deep state or the woke identitarianism that's so common. So you were more apt to reject the deep state if you were poor and less quote unquote educated. And then the third thing that I guess is tied in there is I've heard people say, and I'm starting to believe it, that in the last two elections at least, and I'm speaking in hugely broad strokes, but it's more like the left is the party of females and the male is the party of men. And I think it's not just that Kamala Harris is a woman. I don't think it's her messaging, not her particular sex. There's a crisis and a calamity, and men are showing up, and I think they're stepping up and voting away some very, very bad ideas. Again, this racism, this identitarianism, that's just poison. I think it's men showing up and rejecting that. The move in Latino men, especially. Latino men don't want this stupid X appended to Latin as if that's going to describe them. And it was it was very, very stupid and insulting for Barack Obama to get on TV and chastise black men for not supporting this black woman, to make it all about sex and race in the most juvenile way and pedantic. I've never seen Obama look worse. Oh, except when he repeated the Fine People hoax right before the election. Good job there, Barry.
Yeah, the one that I'm kind of surprised by is the LGBT Q group. They still vote pretty solidly here. It's 86% for Democrats. Uh, I really thought that might have changed. I'm looking for maybe some opportunities where they could try to expand their reach and messaging. So I think that's definitely a category. And I think what something like that shows, and you go back to your income level. And I'm going to reference something I said with our episode with Angela McCardle and Scott Horton. So here are sort of the exit polling data on incomes. And you can kind of see here, it doesn't really matter what bracket of income you're in, it splits pretty down the middle. I mean, it's not quite 50-50 depending on the exact category, but it's pretty close. And versus something like the LGBT group, or as you mentioned, perhaps the white liberal women group, for whatever reason, focused on the abortion rights issues. The statement I made in that episode was, it was something I had learned from, in a way, from Ayn Rand and things like that. But basically, between pocketbook and morality, morality always wins. So,
Yeah.
and what I'm saying here is, if you believe that the Democrats are pro gay, lesbian, that sort of, they're on your side, or you believe the Democrats are in line with you on whatever moral issue you have, environmentalism, abortion, whatever, I really don't think, like, I think economically things would have to get so bad for someone to walk into a poll and say, like, a little bit of inflation, a little bit of grocery store price increase, a little bit of pain here and there in your pocketbook is not going to make you change your vote, because you just can't do it. You morally can't walk in there and fill out the paperwork for the person that you believe is evil, even if you think it would be better for the economy. Let's just say you knew for sure.
I think you're right about the fact that people will vote their morals more than their economic interests, except that analysis misses something really, really fundamental. And I'm going to channel Ayn Rand here. People stealing from you, if the reason that you're poor is that you were being robbed, that's not economics. That is a moral issue.
Mhm.
And I think the rise in populism isn't just, oh, gee, I wish we could tweak government policies so that the market could be more efficient and I would therefore get X percent. I think they're finally cottoning on to the fact that the regime is doing immoral things to them. It's not just an economic policy preference. It's immoral what's happening. So that crosses that distinction that you were just outlining.
Yeah, and I think you are seeing that red pilling or waking up of certain people
Yeah.
on the left. If you wanna think of that, you think of Jimmy Dore, or guys like Do Dissidents, or I just started following another YouTuber, goes by the handle of Gothics, who was radical feminist on the left, and has sort of had a red pilling, if you will, very, very, very young, actually, and she's black, and whatever. I mean, I'm pointing these things out, female, young, black, because it's falling apart. I think the narrative is falling apart in all groups of society.
Yeah.
So I what I hope is, we can get that message out to the left. Basically with the message, look, you're being screwed by the system too. We're all being screwed by it. Now, your solution of how to fix it and my solution of how to fix it are different, and we can have a conversation about that. But can we realize that it's the system that's screwing us, and we have a common enemy here, rather than what seems to be happening on the left more and more, to me, is they're becoming more and more corporatized. They're becoming more and more
Yes.
statist. They
Yes.
love government. They love it. They worship it. It's their pastime hobby to watch politics and Rachel Maddow and look at all the charts, and for all my lefty friends and colleagues, they can't shut up. Every other sentence out of their mouth is filled with some sort of moralistic or political undertone, because for them, politics is life. It almost feels like.
Yeah, which is, I mean, almost definitional of a sick society, right? If your life, the thing you're interested in is the political structure, then that means your own personal life must be deeply lacking in meaning or something like that. Everything you said, I endorse. I just want to throw a little shade on the data you were just showing there. This wasn't God speaking about who people voted for. These are exit polls. And although I think exit polls are a little more closer to the map fitting the reality than the polls before the election, they are still just what people said. They're not demonstrated preference. So there's going to be whatever psychological biases and lies that the people are motivated by, but still very, very interesting.
So, Adam, I want to jump into and discuss what we know right now about Trump's plans for the administration. But before it reminds me of an article you wrote way back on October 1st of 2024. And folks, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go to humannature.com, our Substack site, and subscribe to get all of Adam's great newsletters that he publishes a few times a week. And this one was called Matt Gaetz is on my mind lately, almost as if perhaps you had some kind of premonition. And your subtitle of that article is In Silly Positive Ways and Horrifyingly Disturbing Ways. So the thing you liked about that was that he was on there. He was on one of these shows and talking about poker, right? And you were like, poker? I barely knew her.
Yeah, he was on. I think it was with Dave Smith, and I don't know how in the world it came out. Maybe Dave made a joke, but he was talking about a conversation he was having with one of his relatives on the East Coast, and it was over poker or something. And Gaetz chimed in and asked if it was stud or Holden. I'm like, huh? And then he says, or was it Omaha 8 or better? I'm like, what? So Matt Gaetz is a poker player. Good man.
Yeah, it was Dave Smith's show. But then in the second half of the article, something horrified you about him. Do you remember what you had written?
I don't remember what I wrote. Oh, no, yes, I do. Well, first of all, I should say that I was also prompted to write about him because he showed up on a Twitter Spaces where a bunch of us libertarians were, including Angela McArdle. And he jumped on there and said a bunch of pro-libertarian things. But much like Vivek's appearance at the Libertarian National Convention and Trump's, they're courting our influence and our vote. So, maybe they really believe what they're saying, maybe they don't.
Sure.
So that's why he was sort of interesting to me. Plus, I was interested in how he was trying to maneuver, at least from his perspective, some more honest or at least America First influence in the Speaker of the House position in Congress. But anyway, one of the things he was on Dave's show to trumpet, he'd been saying it a few other times, which was that some unnamed source in the deep state had told him that there were these Iranian assassination squads in the country that were trying to kill Donald Trump.
Right.
And I thought, I mean, I'm beyond thinking, how do you know? I don't believe they do know. But what I always think about these days when information comes out is, what is the purpose of the release of that information?
Right. That's the question.
And what horrified me is that a really smart person could tell this to Gaetz, who in all honesty and earnestness would say this to Trump and to the public in an effort to get the Secret Service shamed and increasing their protection. But the real purpose would be to lay the groundwork if the deep state wanted to assassinate Trump, to then quickly be able to immediately point the finger to Iran, which is who they've wanted to go to war with for 30 years, if not more. I mean, maybe since 1979. But I mean, that desire to go to war with Iran just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And I thought, oh no, are they going to set this information loose, get Secret Service beefed up, and then just have some Green Beret with a rocket launcher just take out Trump's airplane or something, and then let's just say, see, and we told you they had rocket launchers and blah 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 blah. And that still horrifies me. And I mean, as you said, it's not sworn in, and they know what Air Force One looks like even. So
yeah, so I think the key lesson rule that I live by is that I assume that, or I presume, or I just take for granted that everything that comes out of the government is propaganda. And okay, I hate to use words like everything. I'm sure not everything is propaganda, but let's say most things coming out is propaganda, which means, by definition, propaganda has a lot of maybe false things about it or untrue parts to it. So again, it's like you said, just assume it's propaganda. Forget what the actual words are. The question is, why are they saying this at this time? What is it that they want to point you in a direction to? What's their agenda? So I don't
Let me
know. I don't know what. Well, obviously they've been, like you said, setting up Iran for a long time. So we'll see.
let me bolster your claim. I don't think we need to run away from the word propaganda. I think everything that comes out of government that was intentional. So I'm excluding Julian Assange's great work here, whatever WikiLeaks
Sure.
gives us. But every single thing that comes out of government is propaganda by definition. They are choosing what to release. And even that doesn't mean it's not true, but the facts that they present and the story that they weave together with these facts is telling a story. That story is their design. That is propaganda by definition.
Sure.
So let's
Sure.
go ahead and lean into that. Everything they say has some intent behind it. They're trying to convey some message to their listening audience. And I think it's critically important that you never forget that, even if what they're saying happens to be true. There actually is a hurricane or whatever, but yeah, everything they say is propaganda. Never forget it.
Well, with that lead in, and again, don't know if you were sensing something in the ether, but we now know at least some of Trump's picks for cabinet, and smack dab on that list is your boy, Mr. Gaetz, for Attorney General. How do you feel about that?
This shocked me in all the right ways. I mean, he's been such a pit bull in the House, defending Trump against nonsense lawfare and crazy, unfounded, in my opinion, impeachment schemes. And I guess I didn't know he was a lawyer. I assume most of these people in the legislature are lawyers, but I was reminded upon this appointment, or hopefully appointment if he gets confirmed, that, yeah, he's a lawyer. And if you were engaged in shenanigans over the last 4 years, you should be horrified by an Attorney General Gaetz. But I'm guessing that's going to be impossible to get him through the Senate, because so many of the people who have been guilty of various things are still in there. And
Right.
they don't want him rooting around. And yeah. So what do you think?
No, I like Gaetz. I think that whole ethics thing charge against him is bogus. If you listen to his side of it, it almost makes me wonder again to go down the conspiracy wormhole a little bit. Oh, and by the way, folks, Adam and I are starting a brand new series of episodes called Conspiracy Corner, where we're going to go a little crazy off the deep end with conspiracy, but you're only going to be able to find those behind the paywall on our Substack site. So again, another reason to subscribe. Shill. But
And you see how sensible I am here in the public facing episodes, ladies and gentlemen, but you don't know what I say behind the scenes.
That's right. And you don't know how he dresses. You don't know how he dresses either. I mean, that's
right
the
over
real
here,
shocking
my
part.
tinfoil hat.
Yeah, right. No, I like Gaetz for the fact that he pisses off the left so much. Now,
And he pisses off the elements of the right that are that are worthy of being of us detesting.
Yeah.
He's not just a Republican versus Democrat partisan. He believes, I think, this America First stuff. I think he thinks the regime is screwing us, even the Republican elements of it. And I hope he's not fooling me, but yeah, he's one of these people I'm rooting for. Everything I see him doing in a vocal way, I'm sort of behind. And I also agree. I think that lawfare against him was just people who are powerful make enemies, and enemies try and dig up dirt and smear you with stuff, even if it's not true. I don't think any of it was.
Yeah, but I guess where I was going with the conspiracy thing was, how far in advance does some of this stuff get planned out in preparation to prevent someone like this from taking a higher office or gaining more power? Because I mean, why target him of all people? It's not like any
Oh,
of the other senators
because
or
he,
congressmen or
yeah, well, he's just a congressman. He was punched
congressmen. Yeah, but
way above his weight
yeah,
instead of just being one of whatever it is, 345.
yeah.
Yeah, he was I mean, he got McCarthy removed as a majority, or what's it
Oh, that's
called?
true.
Speaker, the
That's
Speaker
true.
of the House. Yeah, with only a handful or a double handful full of supporters. So he is super smart. He's very, very vocal, very, very active. So he punches way above his weight. If you were against what he's trying to do, yeah, you'd have every reason to try and take him out just to get him out of Congress.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly go through these. Of course, the one that I think is the most troubling and concerning for us libertarians is Marco Rubio.
Little Marco.
Um, I mean that one worries me a little bit, but you know what? At the same time, I had no illusion about Trump. Trump's not a libertarian. He's a pro, Israeli, traditional on that regard. So it's not. I don't know. It's not a surprise that Marco Rubio was picked for state. I hope that maybe in a strategic way balances out his cabinet a little bit so that the rhinos can swallow and accept the rest of his cabinet. I don't know if he's put in there. I think who Trump picked for his chief of staff is absolutely brilliant. I want to
Yeah,
learn more about her. But
yeah,
as
me
far
too.
as Marco Rubio goes, what are your thoughts there?
Well, just to pause briefly on his chief of staff, I knew that his campaign was being run really, really well and really, really smart, but I had no idea who was in charge. I'd never heard of this woman before. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was a great pick. I think that between the Adelson money and Trump's natural inclinations, someone like Marco Rubio is the pick you'd expect. Um, I mentioned super briefly earlier, I know Trump likes to fire people, and my own conspiracy theory hope is like maybe he appoints him to get him out of the Senate from Florida, lets DeSantis pick maybe a better senator, and then you can always fire your Secretary of State, right?
the room. Yeah, yeah. I mean that is the key thing. There's a lot of churn in Trump's cabinet, if history is any guide. So Marco Rubio might only last about 6 weeks because oh god, I'm blanking on Jeff Sessions
Yeah,
as
yeah.
Attorney General. He didn't last too long.
The little
But
elf on a shelf.
the rumor is that Laura Trump will be replaced for Marco Rubio's Senate seat.
Yeah, I don't know her politics. I only know how effective she was running the RNC this
It
last
doesn't
couple of
matter.
years.
She's a Trump. She's a co-chair of the RNC. It's
Yeah.
kind of a done deal, I think. But
Yeah, but there's better and worse, right? Like a Jared Kushner would bother me a lot more than, I don't know, Barron or something. I
sure,
don't
sure.
know. He's way too young, but
Any of these other ones you wanna pick out? As a Minnesotan, I thought it was an interesting pick to have our neighbor to west, Kristi Noem, from South Dakota, picked as Homeland Security. I'm not really sure what that pick is about
I
as
don't
far
either.
as
I don't either.
political capital goes or anything like that. I don't know what's going on there, but okay. Um, she's definitely, a very, very much Trump supporter. So it might just be you're a governor and you're loyal and you're on our side type of thing. Pete Hegseth. Now that's an odd one even for me to kind of. And I don't mind it. I don't really care. I mean, the fewer people outside of the more people outside of the system, the better, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
that one surprised me too. I mean, I don't watch Fox and Friends, so I didn't even know who he was. I looked into it. I'm like, wow, I can get behind that appointment.
Yeah, he's
I
fine.
assume some of these positions he picked just because he didn't think they would murder him,
Yeah,
literally,
right.
which
Yeah.
means that, it's a huge spectrum as to how much we can hope that they will just get things done versus just sitting there as a capstone to keep the agency from doing horrible things, which also brings to mind how much can the organization just give a wink and a nod to the person sitting at the top and then just do whatever the hell they want anyway. So I was pleased by most of these
Yeah.
appointments.
Yeah.
I love
I like Stefanik.
Yeah, and I absolutely loved seeing Tulsi Gabbard being put
Now
in as
that's the super
director of
win of the century. I
yeah
mean, that's
national
so awesome.
intelligence. I think it was
Director
for
of
her to
National
go
Intelligence.
from nuking Kamala Harris 4 years ago in the primaries, and then having this pitched battle in the social media and the press with the neocons, to having her being followed around by the Clear Skies program or whatever that nonsense was,
Yeah.
to being put in charge. This is a hero's journey for Tulsi, and I'm all
100%.
about it. Oh, and the same with uh, Robert Kennedy Jr.
Well,
Being
so that's to me the really promising one as far
yeah,
as him keeping his promises. As far as will he or won't he let commute Ross's
right,
sentence,
right.
because a promise made during a campaign, they're
Who
worth,
knows? And
the
yeah,
bit.
and Ross will be easier than those two appointments.
Yeah.
I mean, he just elevated the guy who wrote the real Anthony Fauci to whatever it's called,
Yep.
Secretary of Health and Human
Yep.
Services, or that's amazing. That's an
Fauci
amazing
better
thing.
retire quick and run.
Yeah, and I mean, a candidate always knows, but you got to keep your head on a swivel, right? And that's never been more true than now.
Speaking of keeping your head on a swivel, to totally divert, we're recording this the day after the Tyson Paul fight. Did you watch that at all?
I did watch it.
Yeah. The women's card was amazing. That was a fight. If you could watch it, it was a little blurry for me. I mean, everybody was just complaining online, but
The
they got
Netflix
it.
stream was they weren't
Did,
ready for it.
it didn't last terribly long.
The
About
best fight of
half
the
of the
night
women's
was were those two Mexican guys.
Oh, Ramos and Barrios.
Yeah, that was an amazing fight.
Yeah, that was a good fight. I was very surprised by that.
I detested the women's fight
Oh, I loved it.
because I'm an old school misogynist. I do not like to see blood combat sports done by women.
Oh,
Not
you are
saying
an
this
old
should
school
be
misogynist.
I'm not
That
saying this
don't
should be
I
illegal, but
I
I
don't
do not like seeing women get punched in the face. It bothers me on a
Okay.
visceral
All
level.
right, all
I
right.
just don't like it.
I find the women's fights to be the more entertaining UFC, boxing, in any group. But anyway, I get it. I get it.
I wouldn't mind if they were I mean, I wouldn't watch, who's kidding who, but like if they were doing some sort of a like even if they were shooting at each other, that would make more sense to me. But boxing evolved as a support with upper body strength, you know. It doesn't even make sense for women to engage in combat. This like kickboxing would make a lot more sense for female hand-to-hand fighting than boxing.
Yeah,
I just hate everything about this.
the UFC women's fights
Yeah,
are
those fights are better.
intense.
I don't like them
Oof.
either for the same reason. Again, I
Crazy.
just don't like to see a woman get punched in the face.
But the
Every
big
time that
event,
happens, I want to stop it.
yeah. But the big event of the night I thought was a little lackluster. The Paul Tyson fight. I
It was all
thought it
hype.
was a little
It was all
disappointing.
hype. And
Yeah.
no matter how much you train at 58, you just can't box
And
anymore.
I thought Tyson could have pulled it out, but he would have had to do it early.
You got to do it literally in the first half of the first round.
But man, he just after
And
the
he doesn't have
first
the legs
after round 2, he looks
Yeah.
bent. It was like, wow.
Yeah, all Jake Paul had to do was run away from him for 2-minute rounds. And Tyson doesn't
Land a
have the
few
legs
hits.
to get near him. Yeah.
That was disappointing. All right. Well, anyway, that was interesting. I don't know why we're talking about that, folks. You came for election results. Anyway, Adam, let's wrap this up. We've been yammering too long. Quite interesting. Obviously, Trump's got a lot of picks left to go for cabinet and all other sorts of things. So we're going to keep a close eye on that and report back. But that's just some of our immediate thoughts here. So pretty interesting. Anything before we go?
No, this was fascinating. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that it took us so long to get an election reaction to you, but I was traveling, and I honestly think this is the kind of show that's not you get your daily news, you get the news of the day from it. I like to think that Tyrone and we let things happen, we think about them a little bit, and we try and give you some sort of deeper insights to the best of our ability anyway. So thank you, Tyrone. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and or listening. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe, do all the good things to try and get our metrics up so we can grow our show. And we'll catch you next time on Human Nature.